right. Welcome to the first ever River City podcast. This will be going on YouTube hopefully by tomorrow, and we'll go from there. But for my first guest ever, I have Martin Carver from the UK. I know that's a little interesting, especially considering the topic, but hey, PTS is not a isolated problem. It's pretty much worldwide, and Martin's doing his part over in the UK. So, Martin.
How are you, mate? How are you, Seth? How are you?
Doing great, man. Doing great. Good to see you. How about you just go ahead and start with introducing yourself, a little bit about your back history and what you're trying to do.
Yeah, okay. My name's Martin Carver, ex-veteran, 20-odd years in the airborne forces. I thought I'd do my bit. What I want to do is try and sort out something for veterans that are suffering from PTSD. We're trying to organise a walk-in centre in Birmingham, obviously England, as it being the first one in the country that veterans are literally able to walk in and meet somebody, i.e. another veteran who's qualified to be able to talk to and help them with the kind of problems that they're suffering from. So for me personally, what I'm trying to do is I'm starting to organise little fundraisers. I'm going to do a half marathon carrying 30-odd pounds with no water, just to raise a little bit of money, yes, obviously. But the big one is to raise the kind of interest, the public opinion, to kind of support what we're trying to support over here with a young man called John. And we're trying to run and get this, this PTS centre up and running. So what I need is obviously the general public, Mr. General Public to get on board and support us financially and, physically with everything we're trying to do out here. So it's an ongoing project. As I say, I'm doing a charity run as such, just as something different. Why do a half marathon? Well, half marathon's easy. Every squaddy can do a half marathon. But if you can do it with 35 pounds and drinking no water, especially in the weather we got in the UK at the moment, then it's a little bit more challenging. And obviously what I want is to attract the general public's interest in what we're doing. That's what it's all about. It's not about me. I'm just a tool to achieve what we need to do to help veterans that have got PTSD. As you know yourself, as a lot of service personnel do know, we know about it, but the general public don't, or it's not on their top of list of what is a priority for them at this moment with everything going on. And as we know with this COVID-19 thing that's going on, the mental illness is absolutely massive. And obviously my thing is, PTSD. I want to get out there and do my little bit to get that awareness to help all veterans, whether they're UK or the other side of the pond, to, promote it. And that's what I'm about. You know what I mean?
I do. So let me ask you, what is the public perception of PTSD in the UK? Like, how do they view it over there, or what are their presumptions, if you will, of what they think PTSD is?
Well, I personally think that unless it's touched you, unless you've got a family friend or a husband or a wife or something that's had it, or it's not really their cup of tea. The only time it becomes big priority, all of a sudden, if there's something big on the news, something happens, you know what I mean? Something's on the news, somebody's lost the plot, and all of a sudden he's done something that he shouldn't. Then obviously for that small period of time, it's a big thing. But obviously generally the general public are in their own bubble, even more so than now, and now just crack on and do what they're going to do. If I got to say it bluntly, Steph, they're not really interested. And that's my job, is to make them interested, to make them aware of. If you've got a service personnel that's been through it, then they'll understand it. If you're married to a service personnel, or your son or daughter, you'll understand it. If you haven't, it's something that, the military deal with that, don't they? Because that's what they're paid to do. But as we know, within the military system itself, there's systems that are set up to help you. But once you get outside that military, you're generally going to be on your own, unless one of your mates kind of helps you, pushes you in the right direction, or organises one of the, the regimental associations to contact you and give you that help and understanding that you need. And as I say, that comes back to what we're trying to do. We are trying to make that centre open to all. And yes, all right, we're predominantly aiming for service personnel, but don't forget that obviously policemen, you know, paramedic, medical people, all them kind of people that are dealing with life-changing issues, they're going to suffer from it as well. Obviously, I've got friends and people that have been there, seen it and done it, and yes, they are struggling with life, and that's what we're out there, is to make a difference.
So what kind of services are you looking at being able to offer in the walk-in center? Obviously counseling, I'm assuming, some therapy, and is that primarily what your focus is going to be then?
Yeah, well, I mean, we're actually going double barrel on this one, Seth. So obviously the number one thing is opening this one in Birmingham. As I say, the first one in the UK. It will be run by veterans for counselling. But you know what it's like. You know, people just want to come along, have a chat, see what's going on. You know what I mean? Because people as veterans, we're always a bit sceptical of people who are offering us or something that's totally new. But as veterans run by veterans, nobody understands a veteran like another veteran. What they've been, what they've seen, what they've done. They've got the T-shirt and been there. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So, you know, our remit is to help them. Nothing else. We'll not have to financial report anything. We just want to help them veterans and obviously be there for them to talk to, point in the right direction, 24/7. There's a phone call. And as I say, it is run by veterans. But also we're going to run a little one where I work at the moment that will be run for me. And again, that's one that can actually, you know, male or female, old or young, or whatever colour descriptions can come in, have a little chat with me, have a brew, you know, it's like, have a brew, come and do a bit of fizz, go for a walk, all them kind of things that we were brought up in the military. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to invent anything new. All I'm trying to do is do the Billy basics and be there for people to talk to. And, you know, we're not there to kind of make issues of the people and deal with what they got. We're there to be genuine with them. You know, every person is an individual with their own issues, their own problems. We're there to help. End of story.
Brilliance in the basics. You know, it's all about the fundamentals. If you just
yeah, it is all about the Billy basics, about getting that link. And obviously, you know, where I work at the moment, I teach fitness, but my expertise is cancer. And the reason it's cancer, because I've had cancer. Yes, I've done a course, but that doesn't make you an expert on, you know, knowing what people have got with cancer. Far from it. But if you've experienced it yourself, if you've been there, seen it, had the, you know, all the kind of things that you have with cancer, same with the military kind of thing. If you've been on, you know, ops, if you've been abroad, if you've been away from your family, if you've seen it, then you totally understand where that player, where that soldier, where that person is coming from.
Absolutely. It's that shared camaraderie, that, you know, that experience of shared misery that creates those bonds. As you know, we all know, those of us who have served in the military, whatever branch, whatever country, we've shared those common moments. We've shared those, you know, those moments of just absolute sheer misery, you know, sitting there in the suck. And that's what draws us together. That's what binds us together as brothers and sisters in arms.
And it does. And it doesn't matter whether you come from America or you come from, you know, the UK, as, you know, all the other European or world countries. When you go through them, it's exactly the same. And that's what we're about. It's exactly the same. You've got to be there for people. You've got to be there for your brothers and your sisters. You know what I mean? To help there, to lend it a lending ear and just to listen. And I always find with these kind of things there, sometimes you're just going to sit there and you're just going to listen. You know, it's not to be controversial. It's not to be opinionated or anything. Just listen to the person, what problems the issue's got. And then when at the right time comes, then, you know, put your penny in and, you know, be understanding. That's what we're there for. You know, I don't profess to be an expert. I'm not a doctor or a psychiatrist or whatever we want to call them type of people. I'm just an ex-veteran that's obviously seen a little bit, done a little bit, and I just want to make a difference. I just want to help people. End the story.
You're in the same boat as I am. I think you're a little bit further along with your dreams and plans, but essentially, you know, that's my same, what I'm trying to do with River City also. So I got another question for you then. As far as, so I know in the US, you know, we get out of the military, whatnot, you know, a lot of times we may recognize while we're in that we have issues with PTS. But honestly, it doesn't, a lot of times it doesn't really sink home for quite a few of us really until after we're out, after we've lost that tribe, that family that we've essentially built around ourselves. Um, and then for a multitude of reasons, we don't go get help once we're out. We just sit there and suffer in silence, if you will.
Yeah, I kind of think those Steph. The reason being because you're a soldier, it is you just get on with it. You know what I mean? And that's because you're training, because of your background, your military kind of thing. You're not going to go hatting and cut and speak to it. You just generally deal with it, and sometimes you just can't cope with it. You know what I mean? It's only when another brother, another friend, a family issue kind of, get somebody to talk to, get somebody to help you. You know what I mean?
What's the mentality of your active duty now? Have they recognized this as a problem and are attempting to address it, or is it just kind of they know it's a problem and it's just kind of a knee-jerk reaction to what they're putting in place to try to tide it off as it's starting?
I think they know it's a massive problem within the military, and obviously with the Iraqi wars and Afghanistan and things like that, there is going to be lots and lots of ladies and gents that are obviously going to suffer from PTSD. So obviously, as I said to you before, Steph, within the military, they've got these kind of organisations, these things that can help and deal with it. But the problem is once you get out of the military, then that is always a hard one. Yet each regiment will have its own association, and they do their best to keep the bond and closeness with, their soldiers or people that have served in them regiment. But that's very, very hard because if it's anything like me, once you leave, you just want to move on. You get on. Yes, you've got your friends and that's your buddies that you do miss. But I've passed that kind of thing where it's berries, belts, and it's not about bullshit, because obviously I think it's ingrained in you as a regiment, as a soldier. You'll always have that in you. You'll always be a Marine, or you'll always be a para like me, and it is what it is. But as I said before, it's not until these lads have an issue, have a problem, and somebody else tries to address that problem and help them. I think that's the problem. I don't think the people that get PTSD in this country will generally put their hands up and go and seek help. It's generally if somebody will come, speak to them, somebody will try and, grab hold of them and say, come on, you need help. Come on, we need to get you to an organisation, or like what we're trying to set up, this PTSD centre in Birmingham, you know what I mean? And give them the help that they set. Because let's face it, and you said it earlier, you can be like chugging along, doing your own thing, and whether it be a flashback or something just sets you off, and then memories come flooding back. You see something on the telly, something that you're not thinking about, and then all of a sudden you're in your world of that kind of mental pain, that kind of suffering, that kind of thing that, again, only people that have been there and seen it will be able to understand and cope with it, and push you in the right direction.
I know for me, and it was weird because I hadn't dealt with it for probably years. But I remember I was driving from Indianapolis out to Chicago, and I don't even know what it was, but we're just driving along, and next thing I know, I saw a pothole in the road, and I jumped, I think, 3 lanes of traffic just to dodge that pothole. It was just one of those. I think probably what it was, and the weird thing is, I'm not one of those that has specific traumatic events. And I think that's one issue that needs to be addressed also is you have your, I guess what you would consider your traditional PTS, right? Where someone has a traumatic event or multiple traumatic events. And then, something snaps and then it triggers those flashbacks associated with those individual events. In my case, it was more of a long, drawn out, so my last deployment was a year in Iraq. And my PTS is more just a reaction of that constant state of heightened awareness for a year. Um, so I don't really have the individual triggers per se, the specific events. And I think a lot of times what people tend to forget is that PTS isn't just mental. There are physiological responses in the body that contribute to the PTS. You figure your body is just dumping adrenaline into your body, at the cyclic rate while you're deployed in a combat zone. And the longer you're in that combat zone, the longer your body is just producing that adrenaline just out of, the fight or flight reflex. And then as soon as that adrenaline's gone, it's just gone, and then in a lot of cases it's replaced by cortisol. So now your body's just stressed, and it's a physiological response as well as a mental response. And I think a lot of people either don't recognize that, or they just don't remember that there's more to treat than just the mental.
That's when you need the appropriate experts to help.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, I look at it as realistically, the approach to true healing is a holistic approach. You have to be able to treat the mind, body, and soul.
Yeah, I agree totally.
And I feel like, you can treat one of them and have maybe some success, but until you can find a way to treat all of them, you're never going to truly be able to get to the root cause.
Yeah. As I say, I don't profess to be an expert on PTSD, but as you say, each individual has to be treated separately for their kind of issues and problems with the understanding, respect, and it is an ongoing thing that is forever.
Yeah.
It's not a kind of thing that you can do short term for a week. It is ongoing with the support of the appropriate people, other veterans, the family, and whoever's, the expert in their fields.
So what do you see as veterans in the UK? What do you see as their largest, I guess, not really challenge, but for lack of a better term, what do you see as their largest challenge or largest roadblock in them reaching out for help?
I always say it's trying to get it out there that PTSD is absolutely massive, and it will actually be bigger than the kind of physical injuries as well. Because a physical injury, you can actually see it. And I'm not trying to belay people with physical injuries, but people see them. With PTSD, you can't always see that. And you know what I mean? It's trying to get the general public on side, get that kind of financial support, get more places like up and running like we want to try and get up and done in Birmingham. You know what I mean? It's just get that general support that PTSD is absolutely massive, that it needs to be treated and supported in the way as all the other kind of issues and problems that soldiers get when they come back from conflict and things like that. And until it is, then we're always going to struggle, especially within the military. I think obviously the military, they use us and we do what we do for Queen and country and all the rest of it. Then they owe us in that context that when we leave the military, to still be there, to still offer that supporting arm, to look after us as veterans.
Ridden hard, put away wet, and once you're out of the machine just keeps on rolling.
Well, that's right. Yeah, we always say when you're in it, but once you're out, then you move on to kind of newer pastures, as you think. But as you say, if you've been traumatized in any format, whether it be physical, mental, you need that support, and that's where sometimes, the military lets us down as veterans. They should be supporting us in all facts. It should be their aim to be contacting all veterans. Doesn't matter how long they serve, because it's obviously not about that, and making sure that they're in the right place. And if they're not in the right place, why not? And what can we do to support them?
So what do you see personally that's worked for veterans in the UK as far as, you know, treatment and whatnot? And I'm just kind of curious because I guess the reason I ask is it's been a little while since I kind of saw anything on it. But at one point they were talking about, um, I think it was art therapy in the UK, and they were talking about how effective it was for the UK veterans and whatnot. And I don't know if that was just, you know, news media reporting on a small scale, or if there's something that the UK is doing better than the US.
Um, I don't know. I mean, what I would say is certain regiments are more proactive than other regiments. I'm not going to say that any more one regiment has a closer bond than the soldiers than do, because we always like to think that we're all close within our regiment, and the regiments are what they are, and once a Marine, always a Marine like that. But I do find that within the British Army, that some regiments are more proactive. They're more they have more, I don't know, more finances. They have more people that are actually out there doing things and finding out things and looking after their kind of ex-soldiers, their veterans, you know, and you know, bringing them back together on socials, having a kind of social, because I think them kind of things, when you get the lads back, and you can know straight away if ex-veterans have got problems, issues on the bigger spectrum, not just on PTSD, and that is a massive thing. At the end of the day, as I say, always a para, always a para. I am, and you know, I want to keep that link and stay there. And I think my regiment are very, very proactive. But I know from friends that have served in other regiments, they're not as proactive as us. They need to get out there and support them. Not just the kind of the verbal thing. It's not just about a phone call, but it is bringing them back to the unit to see how it is and the progression of how times are changing. Just keeping that link, that bond there. That to me is everything. Massive.
So now explain to me and anyone that would be listening here that's not from the UK, when you say the regimental organizations, explain that to us, because that I kind of haven't. At least I've got a guess what you mean by that, but I'm not 100% sure.
So regimental associations are something that you kind of advised to sign up to when you're in the army. So it's a kind of thing that they might organise socials. You know, if you've got any problems, the missus has got any problems within the regiment or anything like that. And it's a bit like a welfare thing like that. But obviously the advantage of it runs from when you leave the military. So again, what they do is they organise socials. You've got a kind of telephone at your end of the arm, you know what I mean? So you've actually got people to contact if you think there's a problem, or more so with other people. What I generally see coming from our side, it's if I see one of my oppos that are struggling in life, or I think they've got PTSD, or just, you know, they can't get a job or whatever, and they're at the bottom of the bottom, then, you know, I can actually ring up somebody, and somebody will come and, you know, help them. Somebody physically comes out. People will supply them. If one of the lads needs some, you know, some medical help, and they haven't got the money to it, they'll actually pay for it. As I said, my regiment is very hands-on and very, very supportive. But as I know in the UK, that is not always the case, if that makes sense, Steph.
Mm-hmm. So the regimental associations are kind of like a smaller scale version of what we would have the VFW, American Legion, where basically once you're out, you kind of join these organizations, and it's, for us, it's not so much regimental based, it's kind of just military service based. But it's kind of the same deal where if you run into issues, you can reach out to them. They'll put you in touch with someone who might be able to help you, financial issues, so on and so forth. At least that's kind of what I'm gathering. It's like you said, it's kind of that welfare social network, just to kind of give you some tools to use if you need them.
And they have like you know, associating dues at certain places that, you know, a couple of times in a year you'll get all the lads back together, and you know what it's like when you're getting back to the lads. It's great. It is all about the lads, isn't it? You see them, you have a drink, you have a chat, talk about the old days and things and what you got up to, and you can use it to see how they're getting on. How are they? You know what I mean? Are you struggling? You know, are you on your third wife? How's the, you know, the body and all the rest of the kind of things, you know what I mean? So you can use it as a kind of your own tool as a veteran to make sure the rest of your lads are, because you'll always have lads that some of your lads will be more proactive. They might be the younger ones. They might, you know, they might be the older ones, but it's keeping that bond together.
Mm-hmm.
And then, you know, from there, you might then go out and organise in a couple of socials yourself with the lads, if you know what I mean. So it's just trying to keep everybody arm's length and keep that connection with them to make sure, especially if you think anybody is struggling specifically with PTSD or anything like that.
So I've got a question for you. And again, you know, just give me your opinion. And this is something I've just been kind of curious about for a while now. And so in the U.S., I don't have any numbers to back me up on this. I just know anecdotal, both from myself and some others. But one of the things, and in some cases, one of the biggest reasons why some of our veterans just refuse to reach out for help is because of what a lot of states we have what are called red flag laws. What that is because of firearms ownership in the U.S., a lot of us are afraid to reach out for help because we're afraid that somebody is going to throw that red flag up in the air and say, hey, you need to take all their firearms away. And, you know, and then at that point, good luck trying to get them back. Now, granted, I will admit that, you know, in some cases, some of those fears are unfounded. In some cases, they're not. But for a lot of U.S. veterans, that's one of our biggest issues in reaching out for help. And I guess kind of where I was going with that was just out of just trying to see what the social and cultural differences are or similarities are between the U.S. and the U.K. as far as veterans, you know, reaching out for help or not reaching out for help.
I think, well, obviously we don't have the kind of gun culture over here. So obviously when people, you know, stick their hand up, if they're going to do that, then obviously it's not going to affect us, you know, on our guns and things like that. But I kind of think, I don't know, as I said before, I think as a military soldier, you kind of, and with your background, your training, it is, you just get on with it. You've got a problem, you've got an illness, but hold on, that's what you're trained for, do, and you deal with it. And then on the same side of it is you kind of look, well, you've got mental health, and everybody that, if you mention mental health, they have all these kind of connotations. Well, bloody hell, we need to lock him up and things like that.
Yep.
Especially with soldiers, because you know what it's like if something goes wrong and something happens, and all of a sudden, yeah, well, he's ex-soldier, he's mental health, and you know we should have been putting him away a long time. So again, it's the stigma that comes with mental health or PTSD being mental, if you know what I'm saying, Steph.
Yep. I mean, so, that's the same problem we have in the U.S. You know, again, nobody really pays attention to it until somebody goes out and does something, and then the news reports, hey, they had PTSD, and next thing you know, it's all over the news. Everybody's like, oh, well, that's what everybody with PTSD must do.
Yeah.
Go out and, you know, lose their mind and do whatever.
I mean, and you get all cluttered together and cast together. That's what
Yep.
veterans, you know, you got to look at all veterans have got a certain amount of PTSD that is obviously totally wrong. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there was a program on TV not so long ago with the number of veterans in prisons. That's absolutely phenomenal. The percentage of veterans in prisons, whether it be, you know, Wales, England, Scotland, all the different parts of the UK, is just a massive proportion of it is unforgivable. You know what I mean? But the number of veterans that are on the streets as beggars living off, that are homeless and things like that. The number of veterans that have just, you know, as you said, fallen on hard times. They've been divorced. Have got nothing in life. They're just existing. They're just treading water. You know what I mean? They've got nothing. And them are the people that need, you know, grabbing hold by both arms and looking after, supporting.
Now, do you guys have any national organizations or national nonprofits, not even necessarily governmental, but just national nonprofits, organizations that are reaching out and helping or trying to help with PTSD and veterans in the UK?
Well, you have things like the Legion and SAFA and things like that, but the thing with them, they're like global. It's like with everything. It's not specifically PTSD and things like that.
Right.
It could be everything and anything to do with a soldier that soldier might be struggling with, whether they be homeless and that. But again, like all these organisations, it's all about money. You know, how much money have they got in the coppers to actually support and do the job that they should be doing, if you know what I'm saying. Like everything in life, it's all about the money. You know, if the government went out there and backed them with a lot of funding and support, then obviously they could do a lot more. But a lot of these organisations are self-funding.
Right. So now, how long ago did you start? Now, did you start the PTSD project, or did you kind of co-found it with John and them?
John is the co-founder, and it's its original idea, and I just jumped onto bandwagon just to help him.
Okay.
My aim is just to help promote, and as I said, with things like doing this run, just to kind of get it out there to the general public and to raise a little bit of money. And the original founding idea is John's.
Okay. So how long ago did did he start that? And I guess how long ago did you jump on with them?
I think it's been ongoing through the whole of the year. I've been involved about 2-3 months now.
Okay.
Obviously, I met John through another lady that was suffering from PTSD. Basically, her husband had a motorbike accident and lost his head, and obviously she had to go and recognise him. And then she's got a very, very big military connection with her family. And again, she jumped on board to say that obviously she wanted to do something for veterans, and obviously then contacted me, because obviously I work in a kind of sports, leisure gym environment, you know what I mean? The kind of things that, veterans like to do. And we get a few veterans come my way anyway.
Okay. So it's still pretty new then.
It's one of those. It is very, very new, and it's ongoing. And as I say, it's getting as many people on board, whether it be ex-veterans or the general public, to support us financially and verbally as well. Because we've actually got a minister now in government that is there placed to look after veterans. It's something that obviously something like he should be doing more of.
Mm-hmm. So how much are you looking at needing in order to get your center up and running?
Now you're asking me now, Zeph, and I'm definitely not the expert in that kind of finances and things. All I would say is the more the merrier, because obviously you know what it's like. If you can get one place, you can get two places. Obviously, people got to be put on training courses to make sure they know what they're doing when they're supposed to be doing what they'll be doing. So, as much money as possible, into the thousands without a doubt. But obviously, again, we're looking at, people that might donate a premises that we can actually use as a centre. That would be absolutely fantastic. And again, that's trying to get it out there to the general public. Because as I said to you, I think especially now, Steph, is the general public are in their own world. They're in their own bubble. That they're not going to be interested in PTSD. So that's what I need to be doing. I need to be putting it in their face. I need to be making a difference. I need to be doing something stupid to be able to, put it in there. Not just running, but get it in the papers, get it on the media. And we've been on the TV, we've been in the papers. But again, you just got to keep going. Once you get this kind of thing, it's got to be ongoing.
So what is your biggest challenge, or not so much biggest challenge? Let me rephrase that. How do you approach trying to start that dialogue? Because I know for me, that's been one of the hardest things to do. And granted, I'm not putting a whole lot of time into it yet because I'm still working full time. Hoping next year I'll be retired, in which case that's when I'm really gonna tie the center block around my ankles and jump in the deep end with River City. But the biggest thing I'm having an issue with right now is getting people to start the dialogue, to actually
getting people to listen, Steph. That's why I said to you, it's not good enough to do, to go for a run. It's got to be something a bit more challenging. It's not good enough to just to go for a run. You got to go for a run with your house on your back. It's not good enough to go for a run with a house on your back. It's to go with, without drinking water. And that, I'm just trying to make it as challenges as possible, so the old general public think, oh yeah, what's that nutter bloke doing here? Oh yeah. Oh, I can actually, I'll donate to them. I'll help them out. I'll support me physically and mentally and give me everything I can do. And that's sometimes it's getting people off their armchair, getting off their soapbox and come support us. We've been out there fighting for your rights. You wouldn't have the country or countries that you've got if it weren't for veterans and soldiers like us. You need to now support us in our times of, need. Get out there and help us. And, you never know. We might meet somebody that says, yeah, Martin, I'll tell you what, John, we got a place you can have very low rent or free of charge, and we can move in that direction. I think sometimes you got to make a lot of noise in what you're trying to do. You can't sit on your soapbox. You know what I mean? We went to a rally last week. All right, it was a rally, and again, you've got to be in people's faces. And don't get me wrong, there's a right way and the wrong way of doing these things. I'm not going to get aggressive to people because you got to be white and white, and I'm there to raise PTSD. That's our project. That's the be on everything. And like all of us, we got our own lives, we've got our own wives, kids, and things. But it's getting them on board. It's getting them to pass it to their mates. And you know what it's like, Steph, with social media. It's a massive weapon. I'm an absolutely biff when it comes to that. That is not my expertise. so it's getting people that are better with social media to get out there, to promote it, to sell us, to give everything. We're genuine. We got, as I said, we're after nothing. I'm after nothing myself. We don't get paid. We do it because we want to do it to the love, to help our veterans out there. End of story. We're not going to make a single penny for us. Everything goes into what we're saying. We're not the big, massive organisations like Help for Heroes and that, where all of a sudden they're paying people, directors and that, to run the companies. We don't do that. Everything goes into where we're going, and that's what we're going to be. We just need some people to come on side and say, yeah, Mark, John, that's a great, straight story. It's not a story. It's about PTSD and everything else that goes on. I'm going to support you. Help us. We're begging you. You know what I mean?
The challenge then is because PTSD is just, it's not interesting. It's not, you put somebody up on TV or on YouTube or the internet, you start talking about their story, and you have one guy there in a wheelchair, lost, both arms and a leg from an IED explosion. And then you have another guy standing next to him who the only injury he has is to his mind, body, and soul.
Yeah.
It's a PTSD. And it's not sexy. There's not that, that feeling of, oh man, I can help this guy out because it's obvious what's going on with him.
Yeah. And I always say that's the trouble with PTSD. With people that are lost limbs and things that, and they're, as I say, I would never ever belittle anything. And when they're doing everything they do in themselves, and all the challenges and the walks and the runs and throwing themselves out of play, amazing people. And I would never say a word against them. But as you say, when you see that person sat there or standing there with PTSD, and it kind of looks like there's nobody home, it's not a kind of, I'm not trying to label it as being losing limbs as sexy, because that is the wrong words. But it's not grabbing as the sense of looking at somebody that's lost a limb, that you can actually feel that physical or see that physical injury, because it's between their ears, it's in that body. They're not necessarily going to show it, not until you get deeper inside to them, right. Talk to them, and find out the understanding of where they're going.
Yeah, I mean, and that's probably, I think, one of our biggest challenges, and I say ours because, I'm running into it just as well as you are on social media, of how do we, and I'm going to use the term again, and it's not that I'm, whatever, but let's be real here. People look at things, they watch videos, they support causes that are sexy. that give them that shock and awe value or whatever. If you look at I was about to use a car analogy, but I'm not sure what models convert over. So if you look at what are those London taxi cabs? Are those Opals? The cars, those black London taxi cabs.
Yeah, like
you look at one of those and you just kind of okay, whatever. And then you look at the newest, I don't know, Ferrari or Lamborghini sitting right next to it, right? And of course, you're going to be drawn to that supercar, that Lamborghini, Bugatti, whatever it is. And that taxi cab just can be sitting there. Well, guess what? That taxi cab needs a lot more work than that Lamborghini does. But you're not seeing it because it's just plain. It's just.
But it's your first opinions, isn't it? You're judging that like book with a cover. You look at it and thinking.
And so how do we get on social media and change that initial perception? How do we get their attention?
Maybe we need to get people with PTSD on it, promote it, get them where you are, get them where I am, get them, and hopefully when we got our centre up and running out there, get our minister down so we can actually talk and promote it. Because I think, like everything else, Steph, when you've got some big guys behind you, when you've got some influential people, and let's face it, it's who you know who's going to push you, then anything's possible, isn't it? It's just changing people's opinion that not all veterans, not all veterans are suffering from that kind of physical thing. It's that kind of mental thing as well. It's that kind of PTSD. Sometimes you can't always see the kind of the physical injuries that they've got. Sometimes, you've got to keep an open mind to these kind of things.
And then you run into the challenge too, where, every individual is different. Every individual is unique. So the same treatment doesn't always work. You could have 4 people with the exact same style of initial incident, but the same treatment isn't going to work for them. So now you've got to, find those resources and spend the extra time to adjust to each individual.
Yeah, you got to find them connection. That's where the expertise of people that are hopefully trained on it can recognise that and support it. We can actually see it and help them, because you've got to be able to recognise it to help them.
So one thing that I've been thinking of as far as trying to draw attention, and I'll throw it out there to you guys too, because maybe it'll work. The challenge is getting the skill set on board. So I don't know if you've heard of Black Rifle Coffee.
I haven't. No.
So they started out, they're veteran-owned business in the U.S. And I tell you what, man, their social media and their videos that they put together are amazing. And from what I understand, like 90% of them are done in-house. Basically guys that sat there and figured out how to produce and do graphic animation and stuff like that. And it's just straight humor. It's that kind of humor that, active duty military get immediately. You watch their videos and you're like, yeah, I get it. And then, civilians watch it because it's just absolutely hilarious. And I've sat there and tried to figure out what I need to do to try to pull that kind of, skill set together. Because I think something like that, being able to advertise where you're not just advertising, but you're telling a story. But in today's society, that story has to be, I wouldn't necessarily say funny, but it's got to be attention grabbing, right?
Yeah. And
I've sat there and tried to figure out how I can get onto that style of, up to their level. in my opinion, they're probably at the top of the pyramid as far as, groups and individuals that can do that. And they've even said, they're like, hey, we're looking for challengers. We're looking for someone to come up and challenge our position and show us what you can do. Not that I'm anywhere near that, but I kind of feel like if we can come together, or we can figure out a way to do something similar to that, I think that's what's going to start getting attention. Because I've noticed on Twitter, it's really hard to start a conversation with someone on Twitter. It's really hard to get someone to engage on Twitter. Kind of the same on Facebook. Unless it's their passion, just trying to start that dialogue is almost impossible.
Mm-hmm.
And
what about you? Because you got 9 Lions over your place, didn't you? The clothing company.
Yeah, 9 Line Apparel.
Yeah. What about that? And we've got similar kind of companies over the military clothing. Obviously, bear in mind they're there to make money, and
right.
Obviously, it's all about the clothing and making a business. It's getting them on board. You know what I mean? To get them to support what we're trying to do, because I think if you've got a big company like obviously 9 Lions and people like that supporting you, and right, they donate whatever they would donate if they would donate, but it's actually pushing your cause of PTSD and everything like that.
Absolutely, and I'd love to get to that point. But then again, being as small as I am, I mean, I have no public visibility, so I will apologize to you in advance once the video goes up on YouTube if we don't get 1,000 views within a week or 2.
Yeah, that's not a problem. Well, 9 Lions, I've emailed them and contacted them. All right. I mean, I've had no return yet,
Mm-hmm.
and that's what you've got to do. I suppose we have the thing over here called the lottery. That's like a funding organisation that you can claim money for a certain organisation if you come up with a good idea. And I suppose like these big companies like 9 Lives, it's being able to write the appropriate letter or send the right email that ticks their box and think, actually, yeah, we kind of like that. We can get some good PR from that. Actually, we will support them, if you get what I'm saying. Because at the end of the day, they got to get something out of it.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's kind of one of the reasons why I haven't started reaching out yet, because where I'm at is still more of an idea right now for me. So I need to have something concrete before I can, go to somebody. I need to have that plan that,
where are you going to go with it?
Right. And let's be real here. That's to be expected, because, if every company like that donated time, money, whatever to every single individual that had an idea, obviously it's not sustainable.
No.
So I need to have.
But that's why, as I said to you before, like as I said about our national office, it's about that email, it's the content of it, it's about that letter, it's about ticking that box that think, actually, yeah, we are supporting a massive thing here, something that's going to get bigger. Why not jump on board and get involved now with us and support us in whatever way we can do? Whether it be just putting the word out there, it doesn't even have to be financially, you know what I mean? Because I suppose everybody wants the money, and yes, that's very, very important. But it's, 9 Lives and supporting PTSD or similar kind of companies over in the UK, you know what I mean?
And you said something too a few minutes ago. It's not what you know, it's who you know. It was at this point in the podcast where I, for some reason, briefly lost my internet connection, and we disconnected from the Zoom call. So coming up here will be the part 2 where I finally managed to reconnect, and we continue on with our discussion. Crashed on me. Well,
we're back anyway.
Luckily for me, I will be. There'll be a little cut and pasting, but I should be able to kind of cover that and fix that up a little bit. I don't know what just happened there. That was really weird. All All right, so we're recording again, and I completely lost my train of thought.
What we can do to help to get out promote. Remember what I said? I said 9 lives,
Yeah.
9 lives and promoting PTSD. And I said a similar kind of thing that maybe we can do over here in the UK. And sometimes, whether it might be, shaming these kind of big companies, and how you do that is a different kettle of fish by just keep kind of nibbling at them and kind of promoting it. Well, you're selling all these articles of clothing and you're aiming at kind of ex-veterans or the general public. What about actually bringing something back in that actually is going to go to the veterans of actually supporting them? Why not kind of name PTSD? Don't play lip service, actually do it. You know what I mean? Because you know what it's like with the general public. You've got to wake them up. We got to get the companies on board to support us.
And that's going to be, and I would assume that it's probably the same in the UK. But that is going to be one of my biggest challenges here in the U.S. is, I gotta change the narrative, similar to what you're dealing with over there too. It's not all about the big massive blow-ups of that veteran with PTSD that does something crazy that hits
it's the
national news and all that. So we got to change the narrative, and then on top of that, I'm sitting there going, we've got to get smart about this. We have to look outside the box for solutions.
You got me innovative ideas.
Exactly.
And I'll always say that's the one thing that the military normally have. You can think outside the boxes compared to Joe Public.
Mm-hmm.
Think wide.
And yeah, I mean, we got to get creative with our solutions, because when you look at it, you're fighting, at least in the U.S. You're fighting the government and the military, because for us, active duty wise, at least from my experience and several of our other experiences, they paid lip service to PTSD. It's that knee-jerk reaction of, okay, there's a problem. We recognize that there's a problem, and let's just quick do something to show that we're addressing it. And in our case, what they would do, they would give us a survey to fill out when we got back from deployment. And on that survey, there's questions. Do you have nightmares? Do you this? Do you that? Do you feel like you want to harm yourself or others?
But you're never going to say yes to anything like that.
Exactly.
Downgraded. That'll be the end of your military career.
Exactly. Nobody. Because you just got back from a deployment. If you say yes, now, I don't actually know what would have happened because I personally don't know anybody that actually ever said yes. But the assumption was, they would drag you off to the barracks or to a hospital room where you sat there and waited for a doc to come and clear you while everybody else got to go home and hang out with their buddies and go on leave and everything else. So that's not a practical solution by any means. Everyone's.
Well, it's not an option, is it?
No, and if it's not practical, then why are we implementing it?
Yeah, and let's face it, with some of the things that we might be able to come up with now, they actually might be able to use when you're actually a serving soldier to help and support them. The narrative, as you've just said, because if you just say that ain't going to happen, is it? You're just not going to say yes. I'm struggling with PTSD, or I'm struggling, I've got nightmares, because you just ain't going to do that. There's always other ways to skin a rabbit, ain't they? And I'm looking at it as a genuine thing, not to try and entrap soldiers or anything like that. We know soldiers come back from service in, where they've been, and they will have problems. And it is kind of dealing in and supporting him in all ways to stay within the military. Because the last thing a veteran wants, or last thing a soldier wants, is, kicking out the military. That's their love, that's their life, that's their way. So the last thing they want is to think, oh, well, if I sign that and I say, yes, hold on, I've got a problem, well, you're out, because that's not what they're going to do. They ain't going to say that.
Yeah, nobody wants to have their rifle taken away and told, well, go back and sit in a room with, in a padded room where you can't hurt yourself or anybody else.
Yeah, I know.
So that's the biggest, issue is is solutions have to be practical. They can't
Yeah.
just, otherwise they're not a solution.
Yeah, and being realistic.
Mm-hmm. And then medicine, big pharma. That's another battle, and I haven't done enough research yet to see how much of an uphill challenge that's going to be. But getting the medical side to branch out and to recognize that it's, not just a mental problem, and that you can't just throw pills at it. Granted, I'm not saying that all meds are bad necessarily, but I feel like the vast majority is meds should be a temporary solution at best.
Yeah, I'll always say that. And if I look at the UK, if you went to the doctors, they'll always prescribe tablets for you. They're never, if you can see a doctor in this day and age, you know what I mean? Because seeing a doctor is absolutely nightmare. But 9 times out of 10, they're going to say, take this, rather than actually what you might need is actually somebody to talk to. And it might be as simple as thing as, right, we'll advise you to go to this organisation, point them in our direction, and actually, hey, we'll actually achieve more than what that. Yes, there is a place for any medication and that, and it's not my expertise to say what is and what isn't required. But as is important is the communication between veterans and service personnel. That is that, and ongoing. It can't be a short kind of thing, and that's the problems with these issues, and that's there. It's got to be ongoing. You know what I mean? It's not something like you see somebody once and then they're saved, they've seen the light,
right,
or you've took one tablet. It's got to be ongoing. You've got to get that rapport. You've got to get that trust. You've got to move forward.
And it has to be consistent too. You can't you can't have an appointment and go, okay, next appointment's going to be in 6 weeks. And then one after that, I'm scheduled out, so it'd be 8 weeks after that.
Well, that's the problem. That's the problem we got now, isn't it? It's just there is no consistency of anything. It is what it is when it is.
That's
and
how our
VA say you need that
consistency. Our VA healthcare is that way too. There's very little consistency, or they're just so backed up that you go, well, I need to have my knee looked at because I screwed up my knee. Okay, well, call the clinic. It's January now. Our earliest appointment's in October.
Well, the thing is, you're never going to get to see. You're going to be at the bottom of the queue as well. Right. And I've always had a big hard on about this, that veterans should be at the front of the queue. They should be supported physically and mentally in every way. They should be at the front of the queue. And I'm not trying to belittle any general public person and what their ailments are and their problems and things like that. But they didn't serve their country in the way that we've served their country. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. I mean, I feel everybody should serve their country in some form of capacity. Not everybody necessarily needs to join the military. But I feel like if everybody served or had to participate in some sort of service to their country, I think, everyone would have a better understanding of what it takes to make that country work and have a vested interest in it.
I think they'd be more understandable, because I kind of, again, what a civilian is, they'll see these films that are a million times totally nothing to do with what you do, and you know what I mean? And they might be a bit more understanding if they understood how soldiers, how veterans, how the police, how the paramedics work, and support them in things like that, that actually recognise, actually, we need to support these guys. These guys need, support companies in place, to help them with their PTSD, because it's a real thing. It's a real illness. We need to support them. We can't just expect them to send them off to these conflicts and come back the same person. It ain't going to happen.
No, it never happens. Everybody changes somehow or other.
Of course it is. It ain't going to happen. So, it's not a good thing. I mean, I've got my lad, he's a Royal Marine, and, my worries for him, he's an amazing lad, my best mate. And, obviously my thoughts are never far from him because of everything that he's going to go through or he's been through and seen, you know what I mean? And
how long has he been in for now?
He's been in 6 years now.
Okay.
So, he's starting off in his military career. But again, it's having things in place to support him when he has to go to, conflicts or see things that the general public doesn't see. And it's making them understand the military context, the military mindset, whether it be the black humor that you mentioned earlier on. As a soldier, you do have a black humor. And sometimes
absolutely.
You need that to get along, and the things you see and deal with, you need a mindset that is going to be like that, because you wouldn't be able to cope with it if you was a general public, a normal kind of person from day to day. And that's what you got to have. But as I said, coming back to it, you need support organisations from the government, and the government to the associations and bigger things like the Legion, like SAFA and all the rest of them, getting on board, getting the support they need financially, getting the people trained up to deal with it. It comes to something when, the general public have to support their veterans. The government should be doing it. These major organisations should be doing it. You know what I mean?
It's kind of funny because all I'd ever heard, and it wasn't a lot, but all I'd ever heard before we really talked was how much better the UK was helping with PTSD with their veterans. But after talking with you, it seems like we're kind of in the same boat on both sides of the pond. We've got some programs that are working really well, but the vast majority is just the same issues.
And I think it's worldwide as well, because like yourself, friends, veterans from other countries, and you've talked to them, and everybody's in the same boat. Sometimes, the countries will play lip service, but they don't really get a grasp of it. As you said, it's not PTSD. It's not sexy, and I don't mean to demoralize that kind of the wrong word to use, but it's not,
Right.
but it's just as important as, a physical injury. People need to deal with it. People need to, that is, supporting governments, the organisations need to come out there off their hind horses and support us.
Because, it may not be a physical injury for some, but if left untreated, it's going to turn into one way or another.
But it can be anything. We've already
the stress alone.
We've always said no one person will have the same,
Yeah, absolutely.
Injuries, physical, mental. And let's face it, somebody that's had a physical injury probably is going to have PTSD as well, isn't it? If you've lost a limb or that, or you've seen your mates step on an IED or things like that. Everybody to a certain amount is going to have a, PTSD in whatever mindset, in whatever format that's been. And again, it's all about that support. It's that understanding. That's the important thing, understanding. And treating everybody as an individual and supporting them in the way they need supporting with the expertise. And again, I always kind of think of obviously America, that, you got the best of the best when it comes to everything, technologies and things. And I'd always think when it comes to kind of things like PTSD or, soldiers that have been physically injured, that you would have the best support, the best doctors, the best hospitals in the world.
You would think, but honestly, it's the ones that have the physical injuries, and I don't begrudge them the treatment at all, but, they're the ones that get the focus, they get the lion's share of the focus. And again, don't get me wrong, by all means, absolutely, the ones that have their limbs blown off or visible trauma injuries, absolutely, they deserve every bit of whatever treatment and assistance they can get. But for the rest of us, those of us that just do our time and get out, at best, we've got a few connections here and there, but I would say the vast majority of us, it's, hey, here's we call it our DD-214, our final, basically, hey, you're released from your military obligations. Here's your DD-214. Have a nice life. Kick you out the door, and they just, kick you off the bus, and the bus shuts its doors and keeps rolling down the road. And you're standing there going, now what do I need to do? And then you're so focused. A lot of times you're just so focused on trying to figure out what you're going to do with the rest of your life that you have to put everything else on hold.
Yeah, but then as a soldier, what happens? You just kind of, the word is kind of man on. You just get on with it and deal with it in your own way. And as I said, you might get off that bus okay, or you might not. And then, as I said, it might not happen. Then it might be one day, 1 month, 1 year, 10 years down the road that sets you off, or something you see or upsets you, flashbang, or whatever. And then off you go. All I would say, Steph, it's just to be equally treated the same as everybody else in the same support system that's out there. That's what it's all about.
Well, even on the active duty side, you get the individuals that get a physical injury versus the individuals that have PTSD or whatnot. And you can even see at that point, the treatment's different. Someone with a physical injury, hey, I got to go to the doc, man. I just almost cut my arm off or whatever. Go for it, man. Do what you got to do. You see somebody go, I need to go see a counselor. And if you're lucky, they're okay, go ahead and just go do your thing, whatever. The vast majority of it is, even to this day and age, there's still a lot of, why do you need to go see a counselor?
Yeah, but then you answered it in your own question, because you can't see it, can you?
Nope.
Because you can't fit. It's not necessary physically. You know what I mean? I mean, sometimes it can come out in that person, it can be physical.
Absolutely.
But not all the case. And as you said, it's that kind of, well, it's not like somebody that's lost a limb and things that you can actually see that we need to support them, and rightfully so, physically and mentally and all the rest of it. What about that person that's got that disorder, that PTSD? We can't actually label it. You can't actually see there's something wrong with it. Not all the time. Sometimes you can.
It's that invisible trauma.
Of course it is.
So
it's the unknown, isn't it?
It is. And like you were saying too, with first responders, adding them into the mix. And I would, I think personally too, that I definitely need to get them added into the mix also, because so I was an EMT, emergency medical technician, here in the U.S. for 2 years, paid. And I'm still a volunteer right now. And it's a whole different, when you start thinking about it. So a veteran, especially now, right? The U.S. has been at war, and really the world has been at war for the past 20 some years now, since 9/11. So you get someone with a 20-year career, right? Say they retire at 20 years in the military. They've got anywhere from 2 to 20 deployments. So let's just go in the middle and say they've got 10 deployments. 10 6-month deployments over the course of a 20-year career. And they've got their issues with PTS. Well, now let's flip it to the first responder side, where you're constantly going from 0 to 100 every single time those tones go off. I was the one station I was at in a 12-hour shift. It wasn't uncommon for us to take 14 to 16 runs. So, 14 times a day, those tones are going off, and you're heading for the truck and trying to figure out what's going on. Now, granted, 9 times out of...
How'd you cope with it? How'd you cope with it?
You just...
That's the thing.
It's weird, because your adrenaline goes up, and then you look at the notes and you're like, okay, well, it's probably not going to be that big of a deal. And you get there and you're right. And sometimes you're right and it's not that big of a deal. And you're like, okay, let's go. Come on. Get them on the truck and go. And other times you're like, it's not going to be that big of a deal. And you walk in on an absolute shit show and you're like, all right, I was wrong. Get to work, and then at that point you just fall back on your training and you go. The biggest thing about it is a lot of times you don't even have time to process. You don't even have time to deal with it during the day, because you're just going from one to the next, to the next, to the next. And I tell you what, after 12 to 14 hours on a shift, I felt like a bag of chewed up bubble gum. Yeah. I'd come home.
How the thing is, it's dealing with it when you finish, when you get home, and if you've got
just
a family,
exhausted.
When you're exhausted, are you going to drink more? Are you going to smoke more? Are you going to do things that you shouldn't be? That's the problem. It becomes when you
Right.
You need to get it out. You're just struggling.
And the first responders, I mean, I look at it and go, we've dealt with that. A first responder deals with that daily for 20 years.
And they get no thanks for that.
Yeah, no thanks and no recognition. And honestly, I think they're starting to catch up a little bit now with the PTS and the recognition of it too. And I think a lot of that, honestly, is thanks to the military and the recognition over the past 20 years that PTS is an issue. Because, when I first joined, if something was going on, it was, hey, suck it up.
Get on with it.
Have some Motrin, change your socks, and shut up and get over there and keep going.
Well, that's the way it was.
Oh, absolutely. You had a problem. It was, well, guess what? Keep it to yourself, keep your mouth shut, and keep on going. So back then, the only way to address it really was you just went out and got hammered.
Yeah.
And granted, the social aspect of that, or the society, was far more forgiving of that back when I first joined than they are now. And I can't really complain about how society has kind of gone away from that. I mean, let's be real. There were weekends where we would come back in on a Monday morning from drinking all weekend long. We would walk in the barracks at 5 o'clock in the morning, and we'd have our PT shorts and T-shirts on underneath our regular clothes. We'd walk in the front door, strip down at the duty desk, throw our clothes at the duty, and say, hey, keep an eye on these. We'd walk out the back door, jump in formation, and go on a run.
That's what you did, didn't you?
Oh, absolutely. If I just thinking about it now makes me tired and want to go to bed.
Yeah. But that's part of the parcel. That's what was expected here. You just man up and you just get on with it, as they would say, mate. You turn up, you had a weekend of whatever, and then it out of you. And then in the morning you turn up and then, get going. You bit of fizz in the morning, beast it, and then you just crack on. That was part and parcel of being a soldier or a paramedic or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Just dealing with issues.
So okay. So let's say hypothetically, right? Somebody ends up watching this podcast from London. Let's just throw it out there. Let's play a little game here. That owns real estate all over the London. So if you were to try to find a building, where would you like to have that building at? Let's just throw it out there, because why not?
Well, let's face it. If somebody was going to give me that, I'd have it smack in the middle of London. If they're going to pay for it and support it, without a doubt. But obviously, we're going for the middle of Birmingham, because obviously we got to be a bit more realistic in what we expect to be able to put up and running, isn't it? In the real world, in the real world and what the fab world is, the two different things. Wouldn't it be great if you could have one of these centres in every major city in the country? How fantastic would that be? Be amazing, Liverpool, Manchester, London, Birmingham. But Birmingham obviously being the first one, and that will be up and running, you know what I mean? Setting the trend there. But yeah, obviously London will be an amazing place, because it's always looked at as the big global, the big place to be and see. But you'd expect the same treatment, without a doubt, the same support.
So for an uneducated American like me, where in Birmingham would you want it to be at?
Where?
Your
part
center.
Of London?
Yeah. So let's just throw it out there, man. Throw your dream location out there. Let's get specific. Let's get down to what the neighborhood, the city block where you would be the most convenient.
Okay, I'll have it on Fulham. I'll have it on Fulham Road with the Chelsea pensioners. We'll have it down with the Chelsea pensioners.
There we go, folks. Chelsea pensioners. You heard it from Martin Carver. So if you're listening and you own real estate on that block, just go ahead and get a hold of Martin.
Yeah, give me that call. Let's get it going, mate.
There we
Support
go.
Us.
So hey, Martin, let's just go back to your active duty days and see if you can delve into the memory blocks here and And what's a funny story that you had from back in your days?
Funny stories.
Funny stories.
God blimey, I'm just trying to think of many funny stories. It's funny you said this, because I always think you never ever remember the bad times when you're stuck in holes and digging holes and you're cold and wet. And bear in mind, you know, I've seen a few of there. Some of the funny stories that we've actually done. Just to put me on the spot. I can remember going on a patrol with the lads, and we were dropped off in an OP and watching these lads moving on as we were doing. They had to go off and do their thing that they had to do without saying a lot. And then the front man was just walking, and all of a sudden he just disappeared. We thought, what the bloody hell's happened to him? And he actually just fell down a massive pothole with his thing. And you know what it's like. Once we found out that he was okay, just everybody just burst into tears. It was just that kind of thing that's probably happened to all kinds of patrols or sections during your time or wherever you've been, where you've been steaming along, and then just something random, something radical that's just happened. And I happened to be watching him on the old goggles. I'd been dropped off to see where they were going, and the lead scout just totally just disappeared out of the one. And then obviously it was like packed in. What's happened to him? You know what I mean? There's obviously we didn't see no flash, no bang, or nothing like that. So it was just purely just disappeared down a massive hole. And obviously once the lads had actually pulled him out, you know what I mean, he was all right, dusting him off. Everybody just burst into tears as you would do. You know what I mean? Just one of those kind of funny, iconic things that you actually see during your time.
So how long did it take for people to stop laughing to pull him out of the hole? Well, you know they were laughing at that.
Yeah, well, you know the score, and people didn't even stop laughing, because once you get back from patrol and you get back to camp, then it is. Do you remember that patrol when everybody's taking the nick out of him and ripping into bits, like, you know what I mean? He always gets remembered and never forgot, even when you get back. But again, yeah, as you said, it's just one of those kind of funny things that sometimes you see in your kind of military training that you think, yeah, you'll always remember that for what it is. Yourself?
So I'll stay on subject of falling, but the person that fell was actually myself. So we were in Iraq and we were just doing a night patrol. There was an old, and it didn't work anymore. At least we assumed it didn't, and I don't know why they didn't just blow it in place. But there was an old Dishka sitting up on a ridge line just. I'm trying to remember. I think it was east of our pause. So every now and then we'd just go on a foot patrol and go check it out, make sure nobody been messing with it. And there's this little goat path that just wide enough for you to walk up it, and kind of snaked up and kind of like turned as it was going up the hill. So we all made it up there just fine. And we checked out the Dishka, and there's nothing going on with it. And we're coming back down. So the first guy gets down to the bottom, and he's standing there, and I'm second guy heading down. And I start walking down, and the gravel just started let go. And I could feel it shifting under my feet as I'm going down. And I'm like, this is not going to end well. And so both my feet just shoot straight off the ledge. And it's about a 8 to 10 foot drop down. So both my feet just shoot out from underneath me, and I'm coming off the edge. The first guy down there, he's reaching up trying to catch me, full combat load. I think I was about 260, 270 pounds. So I'm yelling at him. I'm like, no, get out of the way, dude, because I'm going to fall down and kill this dude. I'm going to break his neck if he tries to catch me. So I'm yelling at him, get out of the way. So he jumps out of the way. I come off that drop, and like I said, it's about a 8 to 10 foot drop. The only thing I could do was tuck and roll. So I hit the ground, forward shoulder rolled like 3 times before I was able to stop myself. And when I did stop myself, I stopped in the only thorn bush I had ever seen on that patrol. And those thorns, I tell you what, they were like 3 inches long. And I'm just standing there. So I stand up, and our patrol leader's, he's panicking because he thinks I'm dead with a broken neck or something. So he comes running down. I'm like, I'm good. And at that point, everyone just started laughing. So I did what we thought you were going to die. So I'm going through, I check all my gear. And of course, I'm pulling thorns out of everything. The next morning I had to go to the doc because I had a thorn in the palm of my hand that just went all the way in, and I had to get doc to come cut it out of my palm. But I'm yanking thorns out. I'm checking everything. I'm like, everything was there. Everything was good. I didn't even break anything. It was amazing. Didn't lose anything. Didn't break anything. Only bad thing was I had a can of dip in my cargo pocket that someone had given me because I ran out, and it was wintergreen. And the can popped open, so my whole pocket was full of wintergreen dip. And every step I took, it just wafted up. And to this day, I've hated wintergreen ever since. It was awful.
Something you never ever forget.
Nope. Not ever. But yeah, good times. And you were saying, you have a hard time for remembering the stories that suck, but honestly, if you start thinking about your funny stories or some of your funniest times, those were when times did suck, and it was just something that happened or something somebody said that just turned it from one of the worst times into one of the funniest times you can remember.
Yeah, it's always remember the kind of times when you got a bit of R&R and the things you used to get up to, just let your hair down wherever it may be in the country or in whatever part of the world, in it, because you want to go and see and go to all the places that you shouldn't be able to go to or shouldn't go to. You know what I mean? Because that's what you do, don't you? As a soldier.
Oh yeah.
Part and parcel of it. And that's your kind of, again, your stories you will always tell between your mates when you get back together as lads. You remember that time when we did a bit of R&R in the middle of that city centre, and
those are the ones you start out the story by looking over your shoulder to make sure it's just your buddies listening. But
without a doubt.
But hey, Martin, it's been great having you on, man. I'm going to try to get this put together and up. If I can't have it up by tomorrow, I will have it put together and up on Tuesday on YouTube, and then I will send you guys a link and share it out with everybody that you can possibly think of, and I'll share it out with anybody and everybody on my side of the pond.
I will do.
Any shout outs you want to give out to anybody, or any last words you want to?
Yeah, just the general public, just support us. We want that support. It's a massive, massive thing. PTSD. Listen to us, watch us, follow us on Facebook, Twitter. Come out there and support us. You know what I mean? Yes, we obviously want your finances, but just understand what the veterans that have got PTSD are going through, and have that understanding and support us and promote our course. We need you to be on side and support us. Steph, thanks for your time, buddy. It's been a pleasure and an honour. I'll speak to you again soon. Yeah.
Appreciate you coming on, Martin. So I want to thank Martin Carver with the PTSD Project UK for coming on to River City's first podcast ever and being a part of something larger than both of us. Hopefully, this will reach a larger base for them, as well as gain interest in River City and our mission in the U.S. If you want to check them out, support Martin and his crew, and share what you've heard, go to their website, ptsdproject.org. You can find them on Twitter at UKPTSD, and Martin Carver's personal Twitter account at UKPTSD Superhero. They're also on Facebook as the PTSD Project UK, and I'll make sure I put all those links in the description below. I can be found on Twitter. Again, links will be below. Also on Facebook. I've got a brand new group page up under River City Veterans. Again, links will be below. So guys and girls, if you like this, have any comments, suggestions, or anything else, go click on that like and subscribe button below. Share the link and get the word out.